Right, welcome to 2019. Back again with the GCN Tech Clinic. The old place hasn't changed much, has it? Nor have I. Right, anyway, what is this all about then? Well, if you've got a bike-related technical problem, leave it for me down there in the comment section below. Do my very best to help answer it, as will our community of like-minded bike geeks, to be perfectly honest. They love to help solve people's problems. I often see them getting stuck in with those comments. So, let's crack on. First question, 2019. It's a biggie. It's from Reevy. Reevy says they usually let their bike drip dry after a good old clean and apply chain lube the day after. However, after moving to a new country, they found rust all over the drivetrain. Now they say it's still nice and warm inside as the building has central heating. So I'm not quite sure why the sudden change. Maybe the tap water. Right, Reevy, good to know you're cleaning up that bike. First up, don't know about the tap water and why that could be affecting it, but yeah, different hardness or softness in water, something like that, I don't know. Not that much into water myself, prefer mineral water. But however, onto the actual problem of this rusty chain that you've got there. So, it's important that you're cleaning your bike, which is great. What I would do after cleaning it, if you're going to let it drip dry, is get a product such as Bike Protect from Muck Off, and you can just simply spray that on the chain, give the cranks a few turns, give it a good old coating, still allow it to drip dry, come back to it the next day, and there won't be any rust on it, because that product is not just protecting it, it's also forcing any moisture out from the chain links. Give that one a go. Right, next up is Broto GP, and Broto's got a cheeky little Ducati-esque style avatar. Do like that one. Anyway, lower tyre pressure in the front, yay or nay? There's less weight on the front tyre, so it should need less pressure. Now, Broto has said they found that running less in the front is more comfortable, and they can't tell any difference in rolling resistance. Is there anything they're forgetting? Right, this is largely personal preference. I know when I was racing Comesses out in Belgium, and if there was loads of gravel on some of the corners, generally I'd let a little bit of pressure out, purely to help try and give me a little bit more grip when, well, chasing wheels in those races and trying to stay upright. However, yeah, you can totally and utterly have a softer front tyre, and I know loads of people who do that as a matter of course. As for rolling resistance, to be honest, don't get too het up on it. It's very unlikely you're going to notice it because, like you say, you're finding it more comfortable. And also, as long as you're enjoying that bike ride whilst you're out, I think that's what so many people out there forget. They forget about these little extras they could be possibly faffing a little bit about, removing them from the equation, getting on with what you've made that decision. You've decided to run a lower front pressure in your wheel, and you're happy with it. So just roll with it, literally. Right, Lawrence Liu is next up, and Lawrence says they're planning on building up an adventure bike with disc brakes, but would like to have mechanical over hydraulics for the ease of maintenance out in the field. Lawrence says if they buy a group set, say the 105 R7020, would it be possible to swap out the hydraulic brake system for mechanical disc brake calipers and associated cables? Or will Lawrence need to use different STI levers as well? Would I consider hydraulics for bike packing? Right then. Yep, you're going to need different levers. And to be honest with you, you're going to struggle, I reckon, to get a pair of 11-speed cable-operated disc brake STI levers because, well, no one out there does it. Not that I'm aware of. There's probably an aftermarket kit or an aftermarket brand that does it, but I'm pretty sure Shimano don't do one. To be honest with you as well, Lawrence, cable-operated discs really aren't that good. Yeah, they're really not. In fact, I would go for rim brakes instead of cable-operated discs. As for using hydraulic disc brakes for bike packing, yes, 100%. A friend of mine who went off trying to ride around the world, he had it, no problems at all. And I've heard of people, you know, when they have had a little problem, they've stopped off in a little backstreet moped dealer in the middle of nowhere, and that person there has managed to help out. So I'm pretty sure you'll be safe there. Just make sure, of course, you bleed them and set them up A-OK before you go on your bike packing adventure. Good luck with that one, Lawrence. Right then, next up is Jason. And Jason says they've got a 105 5800 crankset. They're going to upgrade it to the Dura Ace R9100. Will it work with the PressFit RS 5000 bottom bracket? Yes, it will work absolutely fine because those chainsets are both Shimano Holotech 2, so they use the same 24mm diameter spindle, which is built into the right-hand crank. And it will work absolutely fine with that PressFit bottom bracket. The only time it wouldn't work is if you tried to fit it on a mountain bike, because mountain bike bottom bracket shells are generally wider by 5mm and upwards. Nice upgrade. Next up is Mike Shakalok. Now Mike has got SRAM ETAP Wi-Fi running with an Ultegra 6800 5034 crankset, and sometimes the front neck struggles to go from the 34 to the 50 ring when under load. Now they've checked the mech position, angle and wedge many times, and it all seems fine. Now, is it a quirk of the front mech, or does the teeth design of the Shimano chainset cause this? Right then. It's very likely that those teeth design could well be playing a part in it, as well as actually that the chainring spacing is likely to be different between your Shimano chainset and the ideally suited SRAM one. And that millimetre or a couple of millimetres or so is enough to really throw it all out of sync, because mixing and matching components when using digital or electronic derailleurs doesn't seem to work that well once you go away from the norm, because you're asking it to do something it's not programmed to do exactly. So I would, well, really try and put a SRAM chainset on there. Alternatively, quite a few people out there who've had problems with Di2 shifting. In your case, it is a SRAM shifting, but with Di2 shifting, they claim that the chain doesn't move as easy as it could do from one chainring to another. I always say to use your legs a bit like the clutch mechanism on a car. So in that way, I mean, you slightly ease off the gas a little bit when changing gear, therefore it allows it to shift a little bit easier. Right, Basie Amok Baseface is next. Now I do wonder where some of you get your names from. Your parents? Very vivid imaginations. Either way, let's crack on then with Basie's question. John, what do you think of the best tyres for fixed gear bikes? I use one for commuting, so durability and slickness is a must. Right then, don't worry about slickness. You want a little bit of grip, don't you, when riding around for commuting? So go for something with a fair bit of tread, and also importantly, something that's nice and protected against the elements. So you want to have puncture protection in the casing if possible, because riding around urban situations, you tend to find quite a bit of broken glass on the street, sadly, that kind of thing. Now, when I lived in the Big Smoke, that's London, I used to use Continental Gator hard shell tyres. Not the liveliest of tyres, admittedly, but they were great because they lasted absolutely ages. The sidewalls were reinforced, they had puncture protection in there, and they served me really well. Another tyre popular with single speed or fixed gear riders around town are Vittoria Randonneur tyres, I think they were. When they used to wear through the actual tread, you had this green carcass almost, and that let you know when to replace them. But yeah, don't go for slick ones, please. Right, next up is Mark Smith. Now, Mark's upgraded the Di2 rear mech only to discover that the Shimano Ultegra Di2 R8050 can't shift into the smallest two cogs when in the small chainring. So Mark's got an 1128 cassette and a 5034 compact setup. This bugs Mark because he's spent Eurosine, and gone from 22 speed to 20. Can it be overridden using the eTube app? Right then, Mark. Yeah, so when you're using that 34 tooth inner ring and the 11 tooth there at the back, basically your chain is becoming shortened, although it's not, if you see what I mean. But the chain run is effectively being a lot smaller because you don't have that big chain ring or big sprocket at the back to take up the length of the chain. So what you can do, go into that eTube app like you've already mentioned, go in there and reprogram your chain rings. Say that it's a 36 inner ring or a 39, therefore it should well allow you to use that 11 tooth sprocket. It is done on purpose from Shimano to basically prevent you from having a slack chain or anything like that, and also to prevent you from cross chaining. So remember, we should never ride in the small chainring and the smallest sprocket at the rear. But yeah, go into the eTube app and just have a little change around of those settings. Back to 22 gears. Right, Marcus Kane is next up with a Di2 problem. Now Marcus says, John, my Dura Ace Di2 9070 rear derailleur has stopped working and it needs replacing. I'm a bit short of cash, so I'm wondering if I can replace it with an Ultegra derailleur without upgrading any other components. Is Ultegra and Dura Ace compatible between each other? Good news. Well, not good news about that 9070 not working, but the good news is all 11-speed Shimano Di2 components are interchangeable with one another. How good is that? It's only when you go and try and fit one onto a mountain bike and it tries communicating with the front derailleur you could run into any problems. Another area you could run into a problem, though not in your case, but I do like to elaborate slightly, is if you had an original 10-speed Ultegra Di2 component and you tried pairing it up with an 11-speed component. That is where you run into a problem because they don't like each other's firmware and they argue and they just don't work properly. As for the other problem, it's with the original Dura Ace Di2 and well, that only works with itself. But either way, you are good to go ahead, put that Ultegra mech on there, it's going to work absolutely fine. Go ahead, buy one, treat yourself. Maybe you'll find one in the New Year sale. Right then, Martin Shepherd is the penultimate one this week. Now, Martin says they've been running tubulars on their Toyota Cougar for the last couple of years and they've covered 4,000 miles on them. Should Martin replace them yet? How many miles can they do? Right, Martin, without seeing them, I'm afraid I don't know. Also, I don't know what tubulars they are. I don't know what your riding conditions are like. Don't know what your weight is. All of those things, but you can do a few basic checks. First up, what's the general condition of them like? Is there still life in them? So, providing they're not full of cuts and that the sidewalls aren't perished or the tread's not perished or they're not threadbare. See what I did there? Threadbare. Anyway, and also they're glued on all right still because sometimes that can be an issue with tubular tyres. Providing all of that's okay, yeah, carry on using them. But if any of those things are playing a small part in it, then, well, I'd put some new tubulars on. It's always good for morale too. Just make sure they're glued on nice and sticky. Right, final question is from Paul Ferguson. Now, Paul says, how come some manufacturers smooth their welds on aluminium or aluminum bikes and others don't? Is it purely for aesthetic purposes? Can a smooth welded bike have any weak points? I would say it's really done for aesthetics. Although, I like to see the welds on a bike. I just like to see the craftsmanship of how it's been joined together. On an absolutely fantastic one, they're so even and they just look absolutely fantastic. I remember back in the 90s when I first got an aluminium bike, I used to look at them and think, yeah, that person, they knew what they were doing. But I guess that if they were ground away or smoothed over, you could cover up some signs of shoddy workmanship, but it's very unlikely. But I guess, yeah, again, it's horses for courses really there. Without actually inspecting the bike up close and personal, you don't know what you're getting underneath a smooth weld. But some of them are done so well, bikes actually look like a carbon monocoque design. It's only when you go up with that magnifying glass you can tell, or also just flip the bike really, it makes different sound. Either way, yeah, I would say it's just for aesthetics. Right then. I do hope that I've been able to help answer and solve your bike-related problem. You got one, leave it down there in the comment section. If I can't answer it, one of our fellow members of the GCN Tech community probably will. Now, remember as well to like and share this video with your friends. Don't forget to check out the GCN shop at shop.globalcyclingnetwork.com. Whole heap of goodies for you to spend your pocket money on, your Christmas money, someone else's money, I don't know, but we got loads for everyone. Now, for another great video, how about clicking just down here?